here's a couple gameplay tips to improve your RLCraft experience, which, oddly enough, people never make videos on, despite how useful this is. In fact, I need someone to straight away ask me to do this video, otherwise I wouldn't have thought of doing this. So, first of all, controls. Yeah, there's a lot of them. And obviously, some of them conflict with each other. So here's my controls, get a general idea from them, but what you really need to set up is change your dragon breath and mount ability keybinds to the same key you use for sprinting. You can't sprint on mounts, so there's no backlash for having the keys conflict, and some mount abilities are dashes or sprints, so it goes hand in hand. Next up, set a keybind for the pets tab. If you don't know what button to use, replace the beast3 index key with the pets one. You don't need to have a quick access for the beast3 index, you can't really do anything with it, there's only text in it. What you do need to do something with is the pets tab for summoning your mounts. So you're going to want to have the habit of opening this tab and not the one of the beast3 index. Next up is the minion selection key, a very useful quick access key. You can see more about summons and the best mounts here if you're interested. As a bonus, you might want to set up a key for the bauble inventory. This, instead of simply opening your regular inventory, will automatically also open your bauble inventory. So instead of having to do 2 clicks, just press that key and you already have it open. This is useful if you tie a lot, so just pick up your corpse with all the baubles on the floor and just shift equip them all, and you're basically almost instantly fully equipped, even if you're in the middle of the action. Speaking of baubles, check the keys baubles HUD config button, which by default is numpad 9. If you don't know where this key is, you can just edit it to a button that you're familiar with. You're not really going to regularly need to use this, just need to use it once. So what this does is makes this HUD appear. You're going to need to actually have an equipped bauble in order to see it. Now the issue here is because this little HUD that displays your current active baubles tends to be at the center of your screen for some reason, which you clearly don't want. So press that button and drag and drop or configure the HUD to wherever you want to have it. Inventory settings, which you can find at the top right of your inventory. These are very neat shortcuts, and the ones I suggest you to use, or at least make a habit of, is middle click. So when you open a chest and you have all the items scattered around the place, just press this button and automatically the chest will sort all of its inventory and, well, place everything in stacks and in a single row for you to just shift and drag through to fully transfer into your inventory almost instantly. Then auto refill on. It automatically swaps blocks or equipment for you when it runs out. Very useful when building, so you only need to keep 1 stack of each block on your hotbar. And especially useful against infernals that like to chuck your weapon on the ground when you don't have the curse of possession. So if you happen to have a spare in your inventory, it will automatically be placed into your hotbar and you can seamlessly continue fighting. Same goes if the weapon breaks. It's also useful for spam throwing boomerangs and throwing knives or throwing axes. If you want to know more about all those fancy new weapons, I cover it here. Also useful, but this comes down to personal preference, go to more options and turn on sort on pickup. This will make every item you pick up first go into your inventory rather than your hotbar. Mostly useful because in order to drink you need an empty hand, so without this option it will be harder to keep an empty slot open in your hotbar, and you'll always need to chuck an item on the floor before drinking. It's also nice to keep your hotbar nice and clean. You can also turn on auto equip armor. I personally keep it off. Next essential tip is to set up a good health overview, which is almost mandatory in RLCraft. RLCraft is a lot easier if you get the habit of always healing, and keeping an eye on your health is necessary in order to efficiently do that. Since your health is now divided into limbs, and it's insta-death if you lose either your head or your body. To add this, go to mod options, first aid, configurations, overlay, set overlay mode to hearts, go to display mode and type out -1. This makes the HUD stay permanently on screen without fading. And then picking your position, I like to keep it on the bottom left, which overlaps with the chat because I believe it's more important to clearly see what weapon you're holding. But this is a different matter if you're playing on a server where you'd want to converse with other players. You can also change your default health bar to show different color shades instead of rows. This is mostly just if you don't like having your screen get too cluttered. As you can see, in theory I'd have 2 rows of health, but my screen is nice and fancy, and all I really care about is the overlay on the left. This can be done from scaling health, go to config, client, and set custom heart rendering to true. If it were false, how it is by default, you'd end up having 2 rows of health. Now it's still nice and fancy with 2 rows, now considering there's going to be an additional one for the armor, but your health can go up to 4 rows, if not more, if you're using proper baubles and enchantments on your equipment, so it can get pretty cluttered. So keeping this on might be nicer, and you don't really need to keep an eye on that health bar anyway, since the limbs is what we actually care about. For the visual setup, the official recommended texture pack and shaders are Chroma Hills and Solar's Vibrant Shaders, but here's my personal take. Texture pack wise, you might as well stay with vanilla, but there's an amazing Lycanites texture pack called Lycanites Redux, which I highly recommend. Awesome textures and also maintains a Minecraft look, so the mobs don't seem out of place. They also have a Discord server where they regularly post updates. Speaking of which, I also have a Discord server, so feel free to join if you'd like to chat. I also use Prunes Grove's mobs, which makes Enderman look creepier, but you can actually need to manually tinker with it, since you're only going to want to get the Enderman skin. For shaders, I personally use Cells because it's darker, which I like more. Solar's is more vibrant, as the name implies, but the shader is up to personal preference. I wouldn't really say a certain shader fits RLCraft better or worse, so feel free to pick your personal favorite. Speaking of shaders, if you end up having performance issues, I made a dedicated video with performance tips that can potentially double your FPS. With that said, you're ready to play RLCraft with what I personally believe is the optimal configuration. Make sure to check the description for all the links and additional details. And if you have any questions, comment down below or ask in my Discord server for live responses. Thanks for watching. Bye.